LA. It's hard to find an outlet that works.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could tell us how this whole thing was arranged, first of all. Japan is the only place this is being done, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Who came up with the original offer?
I guess it was really a whole kind of chain of events, so I don't know if I can really relate it very exactly. I guess it's Harry Kaneko from the record company was really the guy that got the ball rolling, and I didn't believe that anything would happen. And finally, they got an interest from the orchestra, and then sponsorship, and everything kind of gradually fell into place. And it hasn't happened anywhere else. In fact, people expressing interest here and there, but no one's actually wanting to make any commitment and spend some money and make the thing happen. So a world premiere turns out to be in Japan.
You said the orchestra showed sort of interest. It was like the head of the orchestra interested in willpower. Did you have the album or something? The circumstances behind that?
I know that the conductor heard the album and seems to like it, and the orchestra manager as well. And in fact, he was saying today that he had got the orchestra themselves, the musicians themselves, to listen to it as well. And he reckons about 50% of the orchestra really likes it. Which I was pretty amazed at, that he would even do that. It seems like they're into it. I think probably a lot more people would be if they just listen to it. A lot of these people are really locked into their own little worlds, and don't really know who Joe Jackson is and aren't really interested. So that's the main problem that you're up against with something like this. There are barriers. There are always barriers. Which are kind of unnatural in a lot of ways, because it's all music. I think one always ends up stating the obvious in sort of situations. About how it's all music and it's either good or it's bad, and there shouldn't be these kind of barriers. And it seems obvious to say those things, but in practice it's very difficult to make things happen, especially on a large scale like that.
Then again, it does seem common knowledge that the average listener tends to be rather narrow-minded.
I don't agree, actually.
No,
I don't. I think that the average radio programmer is very narrow-minded, and the average record company exec is very narrow-minded. And I think they presume to speak for the public, and I think that people are actually much more open than they're given credit for. But if all you get to hear is Madonna and Bon Jovi, then you're going to say, well, one person's going to prefer Madonna and another person's going to prefer Bon Jovi, or something. And then the record company turn around and say, hey, Bon Jovi sold 50 million albums. This is what they want. But I don't know. I don't think people know what they want. I don't agree with that. I think, people just will make decisions about what they prefer based on what is available to them, what they actually hear.
It's probably not something you think about much, but when you had completed Willpower and it was ready for release, did you give any thought to who would actually buy it, who would listen to it?
Yeah, I feel that there's a potentially very wide audience. I don't know how big an audience is, but I feel that it's potentially quite broad. In other words, I think it could appeal to a rock fan, a jazz fan, a classical music fan. I guess you shouldn't use the word fan for people who listen to classical music, I don't know. But, I feel that it has the potential to appeal to segments of all of those audiences. On the other hand, what I was always afraid of was that because it doesn't fit very neatly into either of those categories, that it would get lost and actually appeal to no one. I felt that it could go one way or the other. And what's actually happened has been something in between. I mean, I always tend to expect dramatic things, or it's wishful thinking to a certain extent. And you do something and you think, well, they're either going to love this or hate it. And then the sort of dull reality of it is that it's kind of in between, and some people like it and some people hate it, and a lot of people are kind of indifferent, you know. But I think this record is, I think I'm right to a certain extent in that it has found an audience. It's sold better than a lot of people expected it to. It's sold something like 100,000 in the States, which is pretty good, you know. I mean, if you were a rock band with your first record and you sold 100,000, you'd probably be pretty pleased. So, and that's despite the fact that it's not on the radio and it's not on MTV, and the record company has really not done very much to promote it. So I would say it's quite successful, really. And I think with a bit of imagination and in the area of promotion, it could have sold 200,000.
There seemed to be almost a conscious effort on the part of the press to ignore it. I saw very few articles.
Yeah, because they don't know what to say, you know, and I think critics generally, it's very important that they always appear to be clever and one step ahead and really on top of everything, you know. And if something comes along that they don't really know what to say about, they'll tend to lay back and wait for someone else to say something, I think. Also, again, it's those barriers. Because Joe Jackson is known as a rock artist, a Joe Jackson record is going to get sent out for review by the rock press, you know. And these, on the whole, are people that will not necessarily get it. So that's another problem you're up against. We've had I don't know what the press has been like here about it, but in America, for instance, we did get a surprising amount of good press. I mean, more than I expected, really. And we got a certain amount of things that I really did expect, which was people in music papers, listening to it as though it was a rock record and judging it in the wrong way and saying, well, you know, where's the tune that we can sing along to, or, you know, this kind of thing. I'm missing the point of it. Which was, I mean, that was what I expected, pretty much. So I think overall, although some of those things kind of are a drag, you know, I remember one review where it said, why doesn't Joe Jackson go back to writing songs like It's Different for Girls, you know, and saying, this is where his talent lies, with 3-minute pop songs. You know, so how dare he do this? How dare he write instrumental music? How dare he write something that lasts more than 3 minutes? So, I mean, it's kind of a drag that you have to deal with that, but that was pretty much what I expected. So the good stuff, the positive stuff, was really a bonus, and I was glad to get. We got a lot of good reviews, really.
Well, this response from the orchestra here is amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
About high praise from a high source. People like that, who I'm sure rarely even listen to pop music. Well, maybe when they go home they'll put on the Donna records, you know. But I mean, they're obviously very familiar with the classics, the contemporary music.
I think there's more openness than people realise a lot of the time. You know, again, it's a lot of time it's sort of the people in charge, the people in positions of power that tend to have vested interests in things being categories, and this is my field, and so on. I think you might find a lot of time that maybe orchestra managers don't really want to know, but a lot of the players in the orchestra, for instance, especially the younger players, probably listen to as much rock music as you or I do. You know? And I think the classical music field is kind of opening up a bit. And you have people like the Kronos Quartet and so on. You know, I think that's definitely a trend for the future, is there kind of overlap between the so-called classical field and people that are supposedly more in the rock field, but are actually not just rock and rollers that are trying to do musical composition, on a deeper level as well. I feel there's definitely a place for it and an audience for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made Willpower. Because I never do anything just as a sort of ego trip for myself. I mean, I'm always aware of an audience being out there.
Have you done a rehearsal with the Philharmonic yet?
No.
How many rehearsals are you going to have before the actual show?
Well, 4. I guess we have 2 days of rehearsal, and then we have a rehearsal in the halls each day before the concerts. It's not a bad rehearsal schedule, actually. I'm pretty happy with it. Well, I say that, we haven't started yet. I know it's going to be like, but we got more rehearsal time than is normally possible to get in this kind of situation. I mean, I kept holding out for more all the time till we really got as much as we could possibly sort of squeeze out of them. And I think we'll probably be alright.
You studied at the Royal Academy of Music.
Yeah.
For how many years?
3.
3 years. And did you ever perform in that kind of a setting, with that large orchestra?
I played with orchestras.
Was that right?
I used to play percussion.
Was that right?
Yeah.
When was that?
Well, when I was at the academy, before that as well, I used to play in youth orchestras. So I played in one orchestra where I was the whole percussion section. I used to have like 4 music stands set up and we'd work out. It was kind of like a mental puzzle or something to work out how many parts you could actually play with one person. So I've done a certain amount of playing with orchestras. I played piano in orchestras as well. But I mean, not like big orchestras, but student orchestras and stuff like that.
Well, this is amazing, man. I mean, this is a very prestigious orchestra here. Do you feel tense and nervous at all?
Yes, terrified. I'm really nervous because, it's a difficult thing to do. It would be easier if it was just a straightforward orchestral piece, but because we're using the synthesizers and so on as well, and a certain amount of amplification, that's what makes it tricky. We run into all kinds of problems in those sort of situations, so I'm a bit nervous about that side of it. Plus, I'm going to be playing. I'm nervous about my own performance. It's not really something I do very much, And I'm going to just be playing the synthesizer. It's going to be very hard for me not to be listening to what everyone's doing, and concentrate and actually playing my own part right. That's more difficult than it might seem.
Well, it seems extraordinary to me that you can perform a piece that complicated after just 4 rehearsals. It almost seems to defy your logistics.
Defies the laws of gravity, yeah. I know. Well, I tell you, it's more than most people would get. It's more than most composers would get for a premiere of a piece.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But then again, a lot of the times when they perform pieces here in Japan, they're very well-known pieces.
Yeah.
So it'll be stuff that people have performed in school or else somewhere somehow.
Right. Well, the advantage with this is, of course, that we do have a recording of it, which again is more than most young composers would be able to have. The conductor has been able to not only spend time studying the scores, but listen to the thing as well. And, and apparently the orchestra, a lot of the players have heard it too, so that helps as well. But it's quite normal to just rehearse for 4 hours or something, a new piece. It's phenomenally expensive. That's the thing. You've got like 80 musicians or something, and a heavy union sort of situation. And that's why this concert couldn't have happened without the sponsorship that we got from this watch company. And that's really made it possible. I don't particularly like having to have a sponsor in some ways, but if it means that it's going to happen as opposed to not happening, then great. I'm all for it.
Do you think you would have bucked the offer of any sponsors? Like, there's been a lot of controversy over musicians taking sponsorship from makers of alcoholic beverages and that kind of thing. If Budweiser tried to sponsor this, you would have bucked them?
What do you mean? Refused it?
Yeah, refused it.
If it was Budweiser, yeah. Forget about it.
What is it?
Well, they got enough money in it. I'm not going to be a party to the further promotion of bad beer. Anything but I don't know. I don't really like the idea of it, but then again, for something like this, it literally has made it possible. You know, I'm not going to turn that down.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be realistic about things. You know, if you're trying to do something which is otherwise very difficult to do, and the sponsor's money is making it possible, then why not? I mean, it's not like I'm really endorsing their product or anything like that. I mean, it's just they're just presenting the concert. They get a certain amount of advertising out of it, but that's fair enough.
This is the end of the line as far as the current schedule goes, though. You're not going to take it to any other country, or no other offers have been made?
Nothing really definite. I mean, there's just been a little interest from here and there. But no one's actually come forward and said, okay, we can do a concert on this date, we can give you this much rehearsal time, and so on. Nothing definite. And but you know, maybe this will help. Maybe after this, if this is successful, then again, it's very much the thing of if people see that someone else has done it, and then they start to think, oh, maybe it's okay. It's just getting that first performance.
Will this be committed to film so that other people can see that it can and was pulled off successfully?
Well, it's being recorded for FM Tokyo.
Oh,
so I mean, hopefully it's going to be broadcast. Filming? No, there doesn't seem to be any plans to film it. I don't know what happened there, because the idea was kicked around a bit, but I guess it hasn't happened for one reason or another. I'm not unhappy with that, because this is just to a certain extent experimental, and there's always a chance that it might not work very well, and it might be a bit of a mess. I mean, that's the chance that I'm taking, you know. So I'd like to get these concerts over with, really, before we even think about whether it can be done again, or where, or you know.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that completes the first segment of our interview there. I got the tapes of the new live album.
Oh, yeah?
Here, and the people from the magazine wanted me to ask you about the various performances here and reflect back on this. Why did you decide to come out with a live album now? Why?
Well, firstly, it's 10 years since I made my first album. It seemed like a good time to do it. And also, it just felt like the right time to do it. For various reasons. It's kind of hard to put a finger on it. I've been thinking about doing it for years, and it never seemed to be the right time, because it always would have either conflicted with a new studio album that I was doing or something else. But right now, I don't have a new studio album due out for a while. And it seemed like a natural hiatus or something. It just seemed like the best time to do it. If I was going to leave it any longer, I would have to really wait until after my next studio album, which I think would be too far in the future. So by that time, the sheer amount of repertoire of songs there is going to get to a kind of unmanageable sort of level. And I just thought it was good to say, okay, this is the story so far, kind of, and then we can move on, you know.
There does seem to be a conscious effort at including songs from every album.
Yeah.
I think one album is left out of the selection of songs here. Even Mike's Murder.
Yeah,
creeps
one song,
up
yeah,
here.
that thing. But the only album that's not represented on there is Big World. And,
Yeah, I guess, yeah, right.
and that's because Big World was live anyway.
Yeah.
See, so I didn't want to use anything from Big World. In other words, if you want the complete Joe Jackson live collection, you have to have this record and Big World.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we should do like a limited edition of this album and Big World. That's not a bad idea.
That's right.
5 sides for the price of 3 or something, 3.5.
It starts out with the 1980 tour, which was just the original lineup, right? The
Yeah.
Jackson Band.
Yeah. So although it's 1980, we were playing stuff that goes right back to the first album when we first started. It's just that band was really at its peak on that tour, I think. It was the last tour we ever did, of course. And the band was really great by then, I think. It was real good playing on it. For what it was, I mean, it's kind of trashy. It's not the greatest quality recording, I think, but I think the performance is good.
Seems like the angry young man persona is still alive and well on the recordings there.
Well, you can call it what you want.
The way you handle the way you talk to the audience and whatnot. It's like you always seem to be challenging them.
Well, yeah, I think that's good though. I think I still do.
It seems now that the typical audience is more of a sedate crowd with polite applause. They're there to hear the music and enjoy it, but not really get too crazy.
Well, that's fine with me. It's fine with me, whatever they do. Really. I don't think that there's acceptable and unacceptable audience behaviour, except that the more people are actually sensitive to the music, the better it is. And then, if they want to get up and dance or if they just want to sit and listen, I don't really care. The only thing that pisses me off is when you're trying to do something really quiet and it's immediately taken as a cue for the audience to make a lot of noise. It seems like there's kind of law of physics or something that the overall volume level has to stay at a certain level. That drives me crazy.
It draws the jerks out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
The quiet song.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of material to pick from for this for the first side A?
Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff from '79 as well, and I would have liked to have used some earlier stuff, but it just wasn't very good. Most of the things I found from 1979 were just me screaming with a sore throat, just my voice completely shot, and not very well recorded or anything. That's definitely the best stuff from that last tour. There were some more things we could have put on there as well. It's just, as it is, it's almost half an hour that side, so there was a limit. There's a few other good things we could have put in there.
Anything come to mind? Anything specific?
From the side one, from the first band?
From the stuff you were picking from.
Yeah, there was a few good things. There was a good version of Sunday Papers that we didn't use. There was, actually I don't remember offhand. There was a few good things there. But I think the overall selections are right. I think we picked the right things.
Were you responsible for the selection 100%?
Yeah.
You weren't getting any advice from, did David Kirschenbaum, was it?
Yeah.
Did he contribute to this at all?
Yeah. Yeah, we sort of co-produced it. But the selection of songs was all mine because I wanted it to be to have a reason for existing, this record, which to me was to show a different side of my performances and the bands that I've worked with than what you hear on the original recordings. So every song, virtually every song is in a different arrangement to what was on the original records. So that was the first priority, was to pick things which were different arrangements. And the next priority was just to pick the most inspired kind of performances, the most atmospheric performances. So between those things, I think it's probably the best selection we could have made on that. I mean, for instance, there were two other really good versions of Sunday Papers in different arrangements. There was one from the Night and Day tour as well. But the one that I picked, I made the choice because it was the one that was the most different to the original recording. So for me, it has the most reason to be there.
A lot of people go back and kind of, repeat the same style they did years ago. For some reason, I can't see you going back to this format, the former Joe Jackson band type format.
What, the four-piece guitar, bass, and drums?
Right.
Well, I did it once already on Big World. I went back to it.
Uh-huh.
And who knows, I might go back to it again if it seems like the right thing to do at the time. There's always different ways to do it. I mean, I think that the three-piece that I had on Big World and compared to the first bands is very different. Very different sound and different kind of arrangements.
That's what I mean. It's a lot more rough around the edges, the first band, whereas the Big World band was a lot more sophisticated musically, perhaps. There's a little more flash.
I don't know.
Maybe
in some ways. Yeah, I guess you could say that.
I mean, there were no instrumental solos or with the original band. It was all kind of just the beat.
There were.
Yeah.
Mostly Graham on the bass.
Both in here and there.
I guess it was. Yeah, it's different. I mean, we all know how it's different. I guess it's pretty obvious. But with the Big World Band, we were covering stuff from my whole career, if you like, but with a 4-piece, which was quite an interesting sort of challenge. Doing some of the stuff from Body and Soul and Night and Day with guitar, bass, and drums line-up. Obviously it's going to sound different, but I think it's valid. It's another way of looking at it. I don't want to do it again for a while. I think I'm going back into the direction of the bigger band again, but you never know. I mean, sometimes less is more, and sometimes more is more.
Depends on your work with, I guess.
It depends on the specific demands of that project. I mean, I approach each project from a different point of view. Basically, almost scrap everything I've done before, and approach each project like it's the first, and find new ways of doing it.
I guess the 1982 Night and Day tour maybe represented the first major departure in your career.
Well, no, it depends how you look at it. You could say Jumpin' Jive really was the first major departure.
Yeah, really. I guess,
and that's a pretty major departure.
That's right.
But that wasn't so much a departure as a vacation. That's the way I think of it.
Speaking of which, that's live material from that period isn't included on this.
No, because, again, it's not my music for a start. And this is supposed to be a Joe Jackson retrospective, as opposed to Louis Jordan and Cab Calloway.
When you're going to Cab Calloway's studio, you might say that's not my music.
Yeah.
But you decided to leave it off because it wasn't your original material.
Yeah, partly that, and partly there was just not really any good stuff on tape. There's hardly anything, actually. I think there was like one concert that we had an actual 24-track master of.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it wasn't that good.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, the studio performance was so brilliant.
Yeah, sometimes the live performance was even better, but the best stuff that we did was just not on tape. There were some things we did in England towards the end, a couple of BBC recordings and stuff, but they just wiped the tapes. So there wasn't really much to choose from. Well, originally I was going to maybe include some Jumpin' Jive stuff, but the more I listened to it, there were just so many things that were possible to use of my own songs, and so little Jumpin' Jive stuff that in the end it just didn't make sense.
Getting back to the Night and Day tour here, it seemed, I can remember when you came to Japan, I saw that, and it was a very satisfying experience because the format was so different from the previous format, and yet very credible, very satisfying. Thinking back on that tour, what sort of memories, recollections do you have?
Well, it was too long for a start. We toured for, I think it was about a year.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it was just ridiculous after a point. It was exhausting. I mean, by the time we got to the end of the tour, which was Australia and Japan, I was just in a permanent state of jet lag. And where the hell? I'd done so much flying, my ears were totally fucked up, and I'd be on stage and I couldn't hear anything properly. It was really weird. So I never want to do a tour like that again. I mean, I think it was a good show, and there's certain things that I still am proud of about that show, because I think it was a different kind of band, without any guitars and so on. The way it looked was really different, and so on.
And you used women surely for musical ability, as opposed to
absolutely
sex appeal,
or
that kind of frivolity. That's when you started doing the a cappella version of Is She Really Going Out With Him, which is covered no fewer than 3 times.
That's right.
On this record here. I think we're all waiting for the symphonic version now. Who came up with that idea originally?
What? The acapella?
Yeah, do the acapella.
Well, I do. I always come up with the ideas. That's what I do.
Was there ever taken any output from or input, I should say, from the band members in terms of arrangements?
Not really. Why should I? It's my band.
Right.
I'll play what I want to play.
I suppose, yeah. When did that come to you? Was that because you had a band of good singers, or did you originally plan on doing that before you even assembled the band?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, my mind is just always working on stuff in the back of my mind, and then every now and again something comes forward to the front of my mind, and like just happened to be an a cappella version of Is She Really Gonna Happen? And I don't really know what the thought process is exactly. But it just seemed like we had enough people that could sing, more or less, to be able to pull it off. It was a bit rough at times, but I mean, it's a bit out of, even the version on the album is a little out of tune here and there. But there you go. It works, I think. And it's sort of fun. I mean, if something is fun, then you don't really maybe analyse it so carefully. You can get away with it.
Mm-hmm. The piano solo on Cancer is quite impressive.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That's the main reason I put it on there. Because I figured we should maybe at least have one solo of mine on there.
Well, you also do the solo on You Can't Get What You Want either.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's me too.
You were both kind of blowing right there, showing your chops off.
Yeah. Well, why not? I haven't done it much on any of the studio records.
Uh-huh.
But I like that piano solo on Cancer.
Yeah, I thought it was...
yeah, it's got everything. Or the night before. We ended up with 2 nights in Sydney on that tour. And it's one of those. I think it's the second one. I think it's the last show that we did. See, when you get to that stage, there's a certain amount of relief sets in, and you know, like the last gig, you kind of. I guess I was pretty loose at that point. And I just thought, what the hell, I'm going to just keep playing, just keep going. You know.
I can recall, like I said, I saw this at the Tokyo show, and I think at that time you almost did well, not a carbon copy, but it was very close to the solo on the record.
Really?
Yeah, I seem to recall that.
Oh.
I mean, maybe it was just the first half or something, and then you kind of diverge halfway through.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember. I think I may have repeated certain ideas here and there, but mostly it was pretty different from night to night, so I don't know about that. Maybe it was just by a chance in a million, it was just the same, by sheer chance. I don't know.
Yeah, I could be wrong. And then side 3 here, the Body and Soul tour. I'm trying to recall, was this when you started using Vinnie Zumo and...
Yeah, and Gary Burke and Ed Reinstahl. Those guys.
You had the extra keyboard player.
Yeah. And the horn section.
And the horn section, right, exactly.
Yeah, including me.
That's right,
yeah.
right.
3 horns for the price of 2. That's the idea.
I recall, like you did a cover version of, was it Soul Makosa or something?
Yeah, that's right.
I was kind of looking forward to hearing that, and also I think you did a Motown medley on the Night and Day tour.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was like 20 minutes long or something. That was ridiculous.
You could put that on a bonus single, in the limited edition.
Yeah, I thought about using that, but it's just... I always chicken out with things like that. Because it's other people's songs. I mean, how can you really put out something that was originally sung by Stevie Wonder or Marvin Gaye? I mean, nah. It's alright to do it in concert, it's fun at the time, but to preserve it for posterity on record and release it, I don't think so.
What stands out most about that tour, thinking back?
Well, the Body and Soul tour?
Yeah, Body and Soul.
Gloom.
Gloom?
Yeah, that was a rough one.
How's that?
Well, I don't know. It was just I think it was too soon after the previous one. And I found it very hard going. I got kind of depressed, and it was just difficult.
Well, I mean,
it was just a difficult time for me. Just coming off of the success of Night and Day, it was just so big, and unexpectedly big, and then I guess I didn't quite know what had hit me. I think I should have taken some time off at that point, but I didn't. I just went right back and did another album and another tour, and in retrospect, it was a bad idea. But at least we got one side of good side of a live album out there. I mean, I think it's the best side, actually.
Thinking back, I remember an extremely inspired performance.
Really?
Yeah, I mean...
See, I'm sure it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listening to this stuff for side 3, I know that it actually was pretty good. The band was great. I think it's the best band I've had, actually. So, I'm sure it wasn't as bad as I thought. And I always did the best I could, and I guess it was probably good enough for a lot of people that maybe didn't know that how I was feeling. I mean, I didn't feel like I was really as committed to it as I should have been, or doing as good a job as I should have been at the time, but I guess it was okay still.
You had a lot of people on stage there. Did you feel a little more comfortable, like being able to just sit back a little bit more? But do you feel less?
No, I never feel that I can sit back. I always feel very much that the show succeeds or fails according to me. You know, perhaps too much so. I mean, I feel a lot of responsibility.
One thing I noticed about the shows is like you never seem to be going through emotions. It almost seems like you're completely devoted to every performance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I didn't tour for 2 years, because I didn't feel like I could be like that. I felt on the Body and Soul tour there was a danger of starting to go through the motions. I was losing it. So that's why I said I don't want to tour anymore at the end of that tour. I said I'd never tour again. And it was 2 years later that I did actually do another tour. But I had to get that back, that feeling that I could do it and mean it, you know, and not just go through the motions. Otherwise I don't want to do it.
写真大体5分ぐらいかかりましたね。
You dedicate real men to the Australian rugby team. What's the meaning behind that?
I think they just won this big game just before the concert. They beat New Zealand, which is always, you know.
Oh, I see. So it was a genuine dedication, not being sarcastic or anything.
Well, no, I mean, well, I don't know. I guess it was kind of sarcastic.
That's how it kind of comes off there. I thought it was kind of a cut to the poor Australians there.
Nah, they were alright. They love that song. The Australians love that song.
Is that right?
Yeah, every time I played that song in Australia, they just go berserk. Nowhere else, just Australia.
Maybe they're taking it face value. I think it's a dedication to the real men out there.
I don't know what it is. They just love it.
You mentioned Memphis a little while ago. It seemed to me that was a little bit of a, compared to the other tours de force on the record, it seems a little bit lackluster. Or am I being a bit harsh?
Well, I think you're being a bit harsh. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good performance myself. But you're entitled to your opinion. You know?
Well, I can recall you also doing the ballad from Mike's Murder at the time, which I thought was...
yeah, right, yeah, that's okay.
But that got discarded in the editing room there.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to use a lot of stuff from Mike's Murder. But I just thought that one song, a lot of people like that song, and I think it's a pretty good song. It was going to go on Night and Day, and it didn't make it. Wouldn't have really fit on Night and Day, actually. That's how it ended up in Mike's Murder. I didn't really know what else to do with it. But no, I think it's pretty good.
Okay. And then lastly, the big world tour. What stands out about that? In retrospect.
Well, it was quite enjoyable, actually. It was an enjoyable tour. Kind of more relaxed, and then after 2 years off, I think I got certain things a bit more in perspective, and was able to go out and do it the right way and not just kill myself. Originally that tour was only going to be a couple of months. We did 2 or 3 months. And then went out again a few months later and did another 2 or 3 months. Instead of just doing 6 months in a row. So it turned out to be pretty smart. Although by the end of the second leg, again, I was pretty exhausted by it all. So, I don't know what else to say about it, really. I think it was a good show. I think it's one of the better shows that I've done on that tour. I think we were able to, with minimal resources, just the 4 of us, we were able to do a long and very varied show. I mean, I don't think it got boring at any point. I don't think it did. I hope it didn't. So, I was quite proud of that show.
As I was about to mention, I think you kind of extended yourselves beyond the natural limitations of 4 people.
Yeah.
The version of You Can't Get What You Want, incredibly shrewd.
Yeah.
The guitar part, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Did it take very long to put something like that together, or was it just...
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I had a sort of an idea for it, which was a bit hard to translate to the band. It took a bit of work, but it worked out.
And the slow version of Stepping I thought was very Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
His favorite song was kind of, make it into a completely different version.
Yeah.
Take him by surprise.
Yeah, well, I like to do that, because I like it to be entertaining. I
Yeah.
like people to sit there and not quite know what's going to come next, and maybe be surprised. Or we start a song and they're not sure what song it is, and then they realise, and it's, it just makes it more interesting.
A little more tension.
Yeah, I like to create some tension.
Uh-huh.
But that's actually a very natural version of that song, really. You might not think so, but to me that song was always a romantic kind of song. It was really a ballad kind of song, but set to a disco beat. And what we did was took the disco beat away, and it's kind of like he unmasked the song or something. It's like the song stands naked before you, kind of, and revealed for what it is, which is a very romantic song. I think that version worked very well musically as well, as opposed to just being some kind of stunt. I think that it musically is a valid version.
One fellow from the magazine looked at the songs and said, "Oh, well, it's a greatest hits record."
Well, it kind of is, but it's with a twist. Greatest hits revisited, reinterpreted. I really think a lot of the performances are much better than the original recordings as well. I mean, Slow Song, for instance.
Yeah.
That's my favourite track on the album.
Yeah.
But to me, that performance is just towers above the one on the record on Night and Day.
It almost seems that the original intention of the song kind of comes through.
Yeah, it's really, but it's just so much bigger live. It's epic. It's like the big screen as opposed to TV or something. That's kind of the way I feel a lot of the time live. So I always feel it's better live if you use the situation. Don't just sort of cop out and just run through the songs like on the record and then get off as soon as you can, like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do in a live situation.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to have to cut to the photos then. Ah, so.
Probably a lot more people would be if they just listen to it. A lot of these people are really locked into their own little worlds, and don't really know who Joe Jackson is and aren't really interested. So that's the main problem that you're up against with something like this. There are barriers. There are always barriers. Which are kind of unnatural in a lot of ways, because it's all music. I think one always ends up stating the obvious in sort of situations. About how it's all music and it's either good or it's bad, and there shouldn't be these kind of barriers. And it seems obvious to say those things, but in practice it's very difficult to make things happen, especially on a large scale like what they want. I don't agree with that. I think, people just will make decisions about what they prefer based on what is available to them, what they actually hear.
It's probably not something you think about much, but when you had completed Willpower and it was ready for release, did you give any thought to who would actually buy it, who would listen to it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there's a potentially very wide audience. I don't know how big an audience is, but I feel that it's potentially quite broad. In other words, I think it could appeal to a rock fan, a jazz fan, a classical music fan. I guess you shouldn't use the word fan for people who listen to classical music, I don't know. But, I feel that it has the potential to...
It's hard to find an outlet that works.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could tell us how this whole thing was arranged, first of all. Japan is the only place this is being done, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Who came up with the original offer?
I guess it was really a whole kind of chain of events, so I don't know if I can relate it very exactly. I guess it's Harry Kaneko from the record company was really the guy that got the ball rolling, and I didn't believe that anything would happen. And finally, they got an interest from the orchestra, and then sponsorship, and everything kind of gradually fell into place. And it hasn't happened anywhere else. We've had people expressing interest here and there, but no one's actually wanting to make any commitment and spend some money and make the thing happen. So a world premiere turns out to be in Japan.
You said the orchestra showed sort of interest. It was like is like the head of the orchestra interested in willpower? To have the album or something? You know, the circumstances behind that?
I know that the conductor heard the album and seems to like it, and the orchestra manager as well. And in fact, he was saying today that he had got the orchestra themselves, the musicians themselves, to listen to it as well. I mean, he reckons about 50% of the orchestra really likes it. I was pretty amazed at it, that he would even do that. It seems like they're into it. I think.
Then again, it does seem common knowledge that the average listener tends to be rather narrow-minded.
I don't agree, actually.
No,
I don't. I think that the average radio programmer is very narrow-minded, and the average record company exec is very narrow-minded, and I think they presume to speak for the public, and I think that people are actually much more open than they're given credit for. But if all you get to hear is Madonna and Bon Jovi, then you're going to say, well, one person's going to prefer Madonna and another person's going to prefer Bon Jovi, or something, and then the record company turn around and say, hey, Bon Jovi sold 50 million albums, this is what they want. But I don't know. I don't think people know what